Oh, the Spieglers are here.
Shabbat Shalom.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Vani berov chesdecha avovetecha eshta el hicha kodecha beiratecha ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Temple Israel. I'm Rabbi Michael Wolk here with Cantor Shira Lissick. We're thrilled the congregation is joining us over Zoom and over StreamSpot this Shabbat morning. And we are extra happy to have with us in the sanctuary Dylan Sachs and his family. Dylan will be called to the Torah this morning for the very first time as a bar mitzvah. But Dylan, can I invite you and your parents, Nikki and Stephen, to join us on the bima? Before we can start davening, praying together, they're going to make a special presentation to you. So Dylan, when you walk into synagogue, when we pray as a Jewish adult, first thing you do is put on a talit, a talis, a prayer shawl. You have a beautiful talis there that I know you picked out, your blue colors, matches your suit and your kippah excellently. You can hold it up and show everyone the beautiful talis he picked out. And as you see, as you look around the room, you look at your father's talis, you look at mine, you look at Cantor's, they're all different. Each one has a different design. You choose it like you choose a piece of clothing that you like, that's attractive to you. But they all have in the corners the four fringes, the tzitzit, that we wear as a reminder of God's commandment. And in normal times, we'd use them to kiss the Torah as it passes by. So yesterday during rehearsal, your mom called this your forever talit. I very much hope that's the case, but I know you'll be using it when you come here to Temple Israel. So Nikki and Stephen, I'm going to ask you to recite the first bracha, the first blessing for raising your children in the Torah.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu legadel banim laTorah.
Amen. Dylan, would you please recite the bracha, the blessing on putting on the talit?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit.
Amen. And now you can wrap Dylan in his new Talit.
You're standing on it.
Flip it up.
Still need lessons. We need practice.
It's a skill keeping it on.
It's a skill that we have not mastered.
And now, if all three of you would recite the Shehecheyanu, the blessing for doing something for the first time.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Lazman hazeh, 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 hazeh.
Dylan, I think we're ready to start your bar mitzvah. You think so?
I think.
You two think so also?
Let's do it.
Excellent, let's do it. So you guys can go back to your seats for now. We turn in our Sidor Lev Shalem to page 147 for Shacharit, the morning service, beginning the second paragraph, Shochenad.
Yesharim titala uvdivrei tzadikim titbarach shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo בפי שרים תתהלל ובדברי צדיקים תתברך ובלשון חסידים תתרומם ובקרב קדושים תתקדש ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. וכן חובה כל היצורים לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, להלל ולקליס, כל דברי שירות ותשבחות, דוד בן ישי, עבדך, משיחך.
Page 148, please rise.
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך ברכות והודעות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל חי העולמים.
Amen.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. ויעמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חון וביום חון ובחיי בית ישראל. בגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה.
יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לעילם עם כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בימה וימרו אמן.
Bottom of page 149.
La 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 yalla lai lai lai, 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 yalla lai lai lai. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed, la 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 la, 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 la 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 la,
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who forms light while creating darkness, who brings harmony while creating all. May be seated, page 150.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech oseh shalom shalom uvorei et hakol. אפס פצח הגואלין לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים.
Page 151, El Adon.
אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גודלו וטובו מלא עולם, דת ותבונה סובבים אותו, המתגאה על חיות הקודש ונדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו, טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת, בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, להיות מושלים בקרב תבל, מלאים זיו ופיקים נוגה, נאה זיוום בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים במה רצון קונם. פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמו, תהילה ורינה לזכר מלכותו, קרא לשמש ויזרח אור, ראה והתקין צורתה לבנה, שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה, סרפים ואופנים, בחיות הקודש. לאל אשר שווים מכל המעשים במשפט עליו. יתברך משה לשבח מעשה ידיך, והמאורי אור שעשית, יפרוך הסלע.
Page 153.
יתברך צורנו מגן וגואלנו, בורא קדושים, ישתבח שמך לעד מגניותנו. כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים במעביר הרצון קונם, וכולם פותחים מפיהם בקדושה ובטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים, ומפארים ומעריצים, ומקדישים וממליכים, את שם האל המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, קדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ובנימה קדושה, כולם כחרונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech kol haaretz kevodo. והאופנים וחיות הקודש, ברעש גדול מן הסמלים והצרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני, במקומו לברכנו ותתן לך וחיים ויורדים בשלום. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצר המאורות.
Page 154.
והערננו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחל לבבינו לאהבה ויראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום ארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות ארצנו, כי אהוב ישועות אתה וברכת מכל עם בלשון, וקרבת לשמך הגדול סלע באמת, להודות לך ויחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. ותשמע מצוותיי אשר בנתבך. Adonai Elohechem, Amen.
Bottom of page 156.
לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים, וחיסון נכון מחתו ואמונתו לעד קיים. אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו ואימותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו ואימותינו, יוצרנו וישועתנו בתינו מצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו ואימותינו אתה הוא מעולם. מגיד משה לבני מרחם בכל דבר דוב.
אשרי איש.
אתה הוא אדוני.
Moses, Miriam, and the people Israel joyfully sang this song to you. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Middle of page 158. Please rise.
Dihilol el hayom baruch hu mevorach Moshe uMiriam uvnei Yisrael lechanu shira v'simcha raba ve'amru chulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh Nohara tehilot osef ele shira chadasha shibchu gilil shimcha sfatayam yachad kulam uduvim lichu v'ameru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed Tzur Yisrael Kuma b'ezrat Yisrael Uftechinu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael Go'aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael.
We begin the Shacharit Amidah together out loud.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah El HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Koneh HaKol v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע מוריד הטל מכלכל חיים בחסד וחיי מתים ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה המתים. מקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וכרזל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אז בכל רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מן השאים הצרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומך מלכנו, מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי, מתי תמלוך, תמלוך בציון, מתי, מתי תמלוך, תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו, בקרוב בימינו, לעולם ועד תשכון. בקרוב בימינו, בקרוב בימינו, לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש, תתגדל ותתקדש, בתוך ירושלים, ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, ולנצח נצחים. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראינה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד קודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לאמוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Continue praying silently.
You've completed your Amidah, you may be seated. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Amen, amen. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, oseh shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu.
Page 167, Kaddish Shalem.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
ועמד יברח חירותי ומלכותי בחיי חונה ומכונה בחיי תור בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתבר ותרומן וינשא ויצער ויצלח ויצלח בקודשה בריחו. לילה מן חבר חטא ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן מעלמה ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותנו ואותנו זכו ישראל קודם אבוהוני וישמעי ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרב מן שמיים וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ויאמרו אמן.
Amen. We continue with the Torah service, page 168. please rise. I call on Dylan Sachs, joined up on the bima by his parents, Nikki and Stephen, and invite his brother Ian to open the ark. Page 168.
Hold on.
Ein kamoha Elohim Adonai, be'ein kema'aseha, malhuteha malhut, ko olamim, umemshalteha behol, dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch, leolam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Av harahamim heitiv av yirtzon ha et Zion. Tivnei homot Yerushalayim, Tivnei homot Yerushalayim. Ki veha lavad batachnu melech el ram venisa adon olamim. Vayehi bin soa ha'aron vayomer Moshe kuma Adonai veyafutzu oiveha veyanutzu mesaneha mipaneha. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato.
We are the servants of the Holy One, whom we revere and whose Torah we revere at all times. Not on mortals do we rely, nor on angels do we depend, but on the God of heaven, the God of truth, whose Torah is truth, whose prophets are true, and who abounds in deeds of goodness and truth. In God do we put our trust, unto God's holy, precious name do we offer praise. May it be your will that you open our hearts to your Torah, that you fulfill the desires of our hearts and the hearts of all your people Israel, for goodness, for life, and for peace. And let us say, Amen. I invite Dylan's grandparents, Melanie and Colin Zadikoff, and Elaine and Alan Sachs, to join him on the bima. Dylan leads us, Be'ana Rachetz, bottom of page 170.
Be'ana Rachetz, Belish Mekadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Ana Emar, Tushbehan, Be'ana Rachetz, Be'ana Rachetz. Belish Mekadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Ana Emar, Tushbehan, Yehe Rahava Kadama, Detifta Libi Beoraita, Betashli Mishalin, Delibi, Belib. Badehorama Yisrael, Letav Ulehayin, Velishlam. Amen.
Stephen, would you take the Torah from the ark and pass it ledor vador from generation to generation, from Dylan's grandparents to parents to Dylan, symbolizing the passing of our sacred traditions on to our children. Page 171, Shema Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadolu Ladonai Iti. Umeromema shemo yachdav.
Lecha Adonai hagdula v'hagvura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki chol b'shamayim uvaret ki chol b'shamayim uvaret Lecha Adonai hamamlacha v'haminaseh lechol rosh Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehadom raglav kadosh hu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehakodsho v'hishtachavu lehakodsho v'hishtachavu lehakodsho v'hishtachavu lehakodsho Romemu Adonai Eloheinu.
May be seated. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good morning again. It's great to have you with us for Shabbat, either on Zoom or Stream Spot or here in Temple Israel together with Dylan and his family. Dylan, you can sit down. Oh, your mom stole your chair. Ian, you'll get the chair next time, okay? This morning, we begin our reading of the fourth book of the Torah, Bimidbar in Hebrew, or Book of Numbers in English. And our reading opens in the Eitz Chaim Chumash on page 774, Numbers chapter 2, verse 1. Again, page 774 in our Chumashim. For the last year, the Israelites have been camped at the foot of Mount Sinai, as God instructed Moses, and then Moses taught the people the laws of the covenant, the laws that would be the beginning of our faith and our practice. Now they are ready to begin their journey to their new home in the land of Israel. The people who left Egypt had no idea at this point that they would wander for 40 years, and that only their children would settle in the promised land. At this point, they are looking ahead to a quick journey through the desert and concerned about the hostile nations they will meet along the way. So God instructs Moses to take a census of the whole nation, every male from 20 years and up. And the purpose of the census is clear. These are the men who will bear arms, fight wars, and defend the nation. In Genesis, at the beginning of the Torah, the Israelites had been an extended family. But when they became a nation in Exodus, they had no way to defend themselves against Pharaoh and the Egyptians. Now that they are ready to become their own nation in their own land, they will need what becomes their first ever army. In later Parshiot of Bimidbar, we will read about some of the battles they would fight against nations like Moab and Midian that attacked them. This was a major step for the freed slaves on their road to freedom. And reading this section, I believe that God instructed Moses to call this army into service as one way of building up the confidence of a people who we know were prone to fear, prone to self-doubt, prone to wanting to go back to Egypt, where they had no freedom, no responsibility. Yet one tribe is left out of this census and exempted from military service, the tribe of Levy. We conventionally say that there are 12 tribes, but Levi was actually the 13th, because the men of this tribe were not counted as part of that first census. Later in our service, Dylan will speak about what made this tribe special and how the Levites were different. But now I focus on the fact that of all the tribes, they were the only ones who would not go to war. While the other tribes sent their soldiers to risk their lives, the Levites stayed behind to care for the temple. And I wonder, as I read that section, what kind of tensions that created among the Israelites in the camp. Did the 12 tribes think that the Levites were shirking responsibility to the people? Or did they appreciate the role that the Levites played preserving the religious character of the people? I also wonder about how the Levites felt about staying behind as everybody else went out. We don't know the answer to these questions. These are the types of questions that midrashim, that legends, explore as we try to expand the story of the Torah. But I thought about this week. So I thought of the Levites who stayed behind as the other tribes sent their soldiers out to war. The State of Israel is home to the largest Jewish community in the world, many of whom are our family members, including children of this congregation who have made Aliyah. They are the ones who retreated to bomb shelters this week as rockets flew from Gaza into Israeli cities. And they are the ones who will have to fight if the IDF goes into Gaza again. They are, I really hope, not the ones starting anti-Arab riots in Israel or the ones being threatened by violence near their homes. They're also the ones being vilified by large parts of the world. As Congressman Richie Torres of New York put it so well, circulating on social media in particular is a vicious lie, a lie that deceptively reframes the terrorism of Hamas as self-defense and deceptively reframes the self-defense of Israel as terrorism. As someone who believes in the idea of Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel, and the value of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Bazeh, all Jews are responsible one for another, I felt this week like Jewish history is happening over there, far away, and I am too far away to matter. It's this feeling that inspired American Jews, especially veterans of World War II, to sneak into Israel during the 1948 War for Independence and again during later years and later wars. Yet now there is no clear way for Jews in other countries to serve the Jewish people during this difficult time. The Levites in our parsha served the people in a different way, by upholding the spirits of the people through their service in the temple. By keeping the faith going during wartime, they reminded the soldiers what it was they were fighting for. We, who are not touched by the current situation moment by moment, rocket by rocket, need to figure out what our role is in this story. It's a question in the background of Jewish life on good days. What is the relationship between the Jewish community of Israel and diaspora Jewish communities, especially ours, the second largest Jewish community in the United States? But on days like we experienced this week, it's a question that comes to the fore, a question that we think about during a crisis. Of course, many of us financially support organizations that help Israel, organizations myself, like the Friends of the IDF, that provides for the needs of soldiers, or AIPAC, that ensures a continuing relationship between the United States and Israel. But I also think that we have more personal obligations. We are often called, formally or informally, to speak about what happens in Israel by our friends and neighbors who only see bits and pieces of a story that are picked up in short news reports or on social media. Some of us respond to these calls with what I would describe as a very muscular Zionism that leaves no room for dialogue and demonizes anyone here who would ask questions. But I personally think that a more productive way to relate to these questions is to describe to people the Israel that so many of us have been able to see through personal experience. A country that on the one hand was the fastest country in the world to vaccinate its population and to escape the pandemic, but on the other hand was also a place where 45 people died in a religious stampede because they defied authority and safety warnings. A country where religious extremists seek to impose their will on others, but also a country where Jews and Muslims have lived side by side for the most part peacefully. Just like America, that we are well aware of, Israel is neither one thing nor the other. And if we take our role as friends of Israel seriously, it's our job to share that inside knowledge with a world that too often relies on pithy messages on Facebook, on TikTok, and on Twitter. So we turn today in our Chumashim to page 774, Numbers chapter 2, verse 1, as we begin our reading of the book of Bamidbar, and we learn about the formation of the Jewish people, a nation where different tribes had different roles, but all played a part in getting the people to the promised land. We read 7 Aliyot from the Torah this morning, and for one of the last times, hopefully, this is going to be what we've been describing as a hybrid Torah reading, with our Torah readers and some of our Olim joining us over Zoom, and friends and family of Dylan participating from here in the sanctuary. Our first Torah reader will be Steve Powell, and for this first Aliyah, we call on Barbara Bernhard.
יעזור ויגים ויושיע לכל החוסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל וגדול ניתנו כבוד לתורה תעמוד. כהן ברוך שנתן תורה לעם ישראל בקדושתו. ואתם מדביקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim v'nasan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Vadaber Adonai El Moshe v'Aaron Lemor Ish Adig Lo Be'otod Lebeit Avotam Yachanu B'nei Yisrael Mineged Sabib Moed Yachanu V'Hachonim Kedema Mizracha Degel Machane Yehuda Letzivotam V'Nasi Livnei Yehuda Nachshon Ben Aminadav V'Tzvachol Utkei Utzavot Uvakudehem Arba'a V'Shiv'im Elef V'Sheish Me'od V'Hachonim Alav Mate Yisachar V'Nasi Livnei Yisachar V'Tan'el Ben Su'ar Utzva'ol Uvkodav Arba'a V'Chamishim Elef V'Arba Me'od Mate Zvulun V'Nasi Livnei Zvulun Eliah Ben Chelon Utzva'ol Uvkodav Shiv'a V'Chamishim Elef V'Arba Me'od Kol HaPekudim L'Machane Yehuda Ma'at Elef Ushmonim Elef B'Sheshet Alafim V'Arba Me'od L'Tzivotam Rishona Yisa'u.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chayei olam nata b'fafenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher kochech, Barbara. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
We continue with the second Aliyah, Numbers chapter 2, verse 10, page 775. We call on Karen Turk.
Tamot Chasya bar Avraham David v'Chana Hinda Sheni.
Baruch Adonai et Baruch Atah Adonai.
Baruch
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch
Adonai
Hamvarach
leolam
leolam
vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Degel Machane Ruvain Temana Tzivotam Benasi Livnei Ruvain Elitzur Ben Shadeur Utzva'ol Kudav Shisha B'Arba'im Elef V'Chamesh Me'od V'Hachonim Alav Mate Shimon V'Nasi Livnei Shimon Shlumiel Ben Suri Shaddai Utzva'ol Uvkudehem Tish'a V'Chamishim Elef Ushlosh Me'od Umate Gad V'Nasi Livnei Gad Eliasa Ben Ru'el Utzva'ol Uvkudehem Chamisha v'Arba'im Elef v'Sheish Me'od v'Chamishim Kol HaPekudim L'Machane Reuven Ma'at Elef v'Echad v'Chamishim Elef v'Arba Me'od v'Chamishim L'Tzivotam Ushniyim Yisau.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam neta b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher Kochech Karen. Many congregants know Karen from several different settings. Probably many of you know her as the High Holiday Seating Czar for the last few years. That's not your title? Sorry.
Yes.
Well, she has a new title as of a week and a half ago, and that is as the Interim Executive Director of Temple Israel, and we welcome her to that role. And Karen, appreciate working with you after a week and a half. It's been great so far. It's a lot to take in, but we're happy to have you here at Temple Israel, joining us in the office. And yesterday, I know you celebrated Jeff's birthday, so we wish a happy birthday to him if he's somewhere over there. How was that impressive-looking cake?
Beyond delicious.
Beyond delicious. Leftovers on, might if we're in the office next time.
On Monday. Yeah, the best thing, we already have bagels back in the office, so that's amazing.
Yasher Kochech, Karen. We continue with the third Aliyah, Numbers chapter 2, verse 17, the top of page 776. Our Torah reader will be Laura Bernstein, and we call on Dylan's grandparents, Colin and Melanie Zadikoff, to join us on the bima.
Yamdu shalom ben Amchum veYehudit veMichal bat Binyamin veSlava Shlishi.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai
HaMevorach
Mevorach
Le'olam
Lamed. Baruch Atah Adonai Lemelech HaOlam Asher Bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'nasau ha'moed mechanei hilvim betoch ha'machanot kasher yachanu kein yisau ish al yado riglehem degel machan Ephraim letzivotam yama V'nisha livnei Ephraim Elishama ben Amiyud Utzva'o uvkudehem Arba'im elef v'chamesh me'ot V'alav matei Menashe V'nishi livnei Menashe Gimliel ben Bedatsur Utzva'o uvkudehem Shenayim u'shloshim elef u'matayim U'matei b'nayamin V'nasi livnei Binyamin Avidan ben Gidoni Utzva'o uvkudehem Chamasha u'shloshim elef arba me'ot kol havkufdim lemahane Ephraim mi'et elef u'shmonat alfim u'me'a litzvotam u'shlishim yisau.
Baruch Atah Adonai Lemelech HaOlam Asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam neta b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. We wish a big Yasher Koach to Melanie and Colin Zadikoff, and welcome. We're so glad that you could be with us today, joining us from Cincinnati to celebrate with Dylan. Welcome back to Charlotte. One important question, is Marx's Bagels still open?
Yes.
They survived?
It still is.
I'm very glad to hear that. Mazel tov, mazel tov. Great to have you here. I look forward to it. Cincinnati is an hour and a half north of Louisville, and it was the closest larger kosher grocery that we could go to before Passover. We continue on Numbers chapter 2, verse 25. page 776. Call on Dylan's grandparents, Alan and Elaine Sachs.
Yamdu Aharon ben David v'Shivka ve'Esther Brunner bat Yosef Pesel Revi.
Take it away.
Baruch Hu es Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Borach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bocha boro mikol ha'amim v'notan lanu es Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Degel mechane dan tzafona litzvotam v'nashi livnei dan achi eret ben Shaddai utzba'o uvkudehem shnayim v'shishim elef ushva meot והאחרונים עליו בית האשר ונשיא לבני אשר פגיאל בן אוחרון וצבאו ופקודיהם 140,500 ומטה נפתלי ונשיא לבני נפתלי, אחירה בן עינן, וצבאו ופקודיהם 350,400, כל הפיקודים למחנה דן, 150,600 לחרונה יישאו לדגליהם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher notan lanu toras emes v'chayei olam nota b'sochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher kochech to our Torah reader, Laura Bernstein. A big mazel tov to Elaine and Alan joining us from Boynton Beach, Florida. If I know correctly, not an area that I know anything about, but we are thrilled to have you here this morning. Welcome back to Charlotte. I'm glad that you can celebrate with Dylan here in person.
Thank you.
Mazel tov.
Brought the sunshine too.
You brought the sunshine from Florida?
From Florida.
We appreciate it. Mazel tov. We continue with the fifth Aliyah, Numbers chapter 2, verse 32, page 777. Our Torah reader will be Marcy Thaler. And for this Aliyah, we call on Cindy Zadikoff and Ilan Radzinek, Dylan's aunt and uncle.
יעמדו שושנה בת שלום ומיכל ואילן בן מרדכי ואסתר 50.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ele pikudei b'nei Yisrael yevei tavotam. Kol pikudei hamalchanot tzivvotam. 600,000 ו-550 והרים לא הדחקתו בתוך בני ישראל, כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה, ויעשו בני ישראל ככל אשר ציווה אדוני את משה. כן חנו לדגליהם וכן נשאו איש למשפחותיו על בית אבותיו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher Koch, to Ilan and to Cindy, we're glad to have you here from Chicago. What part of Chicago?
The city.
The city? Okay. How's Milt's Barbecue doing?
Oh, very well.
I know a city by its kosher restaurants. Great to have you.
It's a nice landmark for sure.
What's that?
It's a nice landmark for sure.
Do they still have a truck?
The truck, I think the truck probably didn't make it through the pandemic. We'll see if it comes back.
God willing.
But I see the cities you know is through the restaurant establishment.
You're getting the picture. Mazel tov. We continue with the 6th Aliyah, Numbers chapter 3, verse 1, page 777. We call on Barry and Shari Sadler, Dylan's uncle and aunt.
Yamdu Bardov ben Shmiel v'Gita Leah v'Shivka bat Aaron v'Esther Brunner Shishi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ולתולדות אהרון ומשה ביום דיבר אדוני את משה בהר סיני, ואלה שמות בני אהרון הבכור נדב ואביהו אלעזר ואיתמר. אלה שמות בני אהרון הכהנים המשוחים, אשר מילאי ידם לכהן. וימת נדב ואביהו לפני אדוני, והקריבם איש שרה לפני אדוני במדבר סיני, ובנים לא היו להם, ויכהן אלעזר ואיתמר על פני אהרון אביהם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher Koch, to Barry and Shari, welcome to Temple Israel. Joining us also from Florida, right?
Yes.
Palm Harbor,
Yes.
which I don't know any restaurants from.
Bay.
Tampa Bay. Okay, got it. Well, we are happy to have you here. Thank you for bringing the sunshine as well, and it's great that you can celebrate with Dylan this morning. Mazel tov.
Thank you.
We continue with the 7th Aliyah, Numbers chapter 3, verse 5, page 778. And we are happy to call on Dylan's parents, Stephen and Nikki Sachs.
Yamdu Mordechai ben Aharon v'Esther Brunner v'Nira bat Shalom v'Michal Shvi.
And Ian Sachs.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai, noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, הקרב את מטה לוי, ועמדת אותו לפני אהרון הכהן, ושרתו אותו, ושמרו את משמרתו, ואת משמרת כל העדה, לפני המועד, לעבוד את עבודת המשכן, ושמרו את כל כלי אוהל מועד, ואת משמרת בני ישראל, לעבוד את עבודת המשכן. ונתת את אביהם לאהרון ובניו, נתונים המה לו מאת בני ישראל, ואת אהרון ואת בניו תפקוד, ושמרו את כהונתם, והזר הקרב יומת. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, הנה לקחתי את הלוויים מתוך בני ישראל, תחת כל בכור פטר רחם מבני ישראל, והיו לי הלוויים, כי לי כל בכור ביום הכותי כל בכור בארץ מצרים, הקדשתי לי כל בכור בישראל, מאדם עד בהמה ליהו אני אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Yasher kochek to Marcy for reading Torah, and a big Yasher koach and mazel tov to Nikki and to Stephen and to Ian. Ian, you sounded like you're about ready to go. It's great that you were here today. You guys look so happy and feel good about being here and already are proud of Dylan. Now, Nikki, I kind of laughed yesterday when the day before your son's bar mitzvah, the governor made such a momentous announcement changing the way we operate. And obviously, we'll be talking about that. And I say that because Nikki serves on our board and executive committee, and throughout this year has kept us focused on improving the experience of B'nai Mitzvah during this time. So thank you. And one of those ironies that your son's bar mitzvah is at the very end of this, but mazel tov, and thank you for everything you do for Temple Israel. We now pray on behalf of those who are ill, our friends and family in need of physical and spiritual well-being. Included in our prayers this morning, we think of Chana Miriam bat Rivka, Avram Mordechai ben Fega, Tamar bat Rachel Yehuda, Rav Yaakov Chai ben Hadassah, Shimon ben Yaakov Mordechai ben Naomi, Devorah bat Sarah, Hershel Yehoshua ben Malka, Perel bat Rezel, Dov ben Ita, Shmuel Yaakov ben Kalia ve'Ari, Devorah Rachel, Malka bat Sarah, Leib Israel ben Sipora, Eliza Meira bat Leah, Tzivia bat Chana, Yudit bat Miriam, Meira Bracha bat Chana, Sipora bat Chasha, Fegla bat Chasha, Arya ben Malka, Rachel bat Ruth, Harav Moshe Al-Chanan ben Harav Abraham Halevi, Kalman Pinchas ben Moshe ve'Eta, Sarah bat Chaya, Chanoch Yitzchak ben Sarah, Sarah bat Shendel ben Yamin Noah, Ever Yitzchak, Yosef ben Miriam, Shiri Ruth Batya bat Yaakov Yerushalayim, Tziril ben Moshe Kalman, Miriam Tzivia bat Aaron Betova, Chava Charna bat Zevdov, Leah bat Tzvi Zisala, Chaim Yitzchak ben Gittel Fagel, Howard and Beverly Kaufman, Elijah Avila, Jordana Faith Ram, Mabel Tannenbaum, Kathy Berlin, Maxine Albaum, Sandra Harold, Don Roth, Philip LaMantia, Tamara Rivera, and Tracy Albridge. Now take a moment to recite the names of anyone else you'd like to pray for this Shabbat morning. Mishaberach, the prayer for healing.
Mishaberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless doctors, healthcare workers for honoring God and caring for God's creation. May God protect and save you from all illness and send blessing and success to the work of your hands, along with all others who are doing their part to ease suffering and save lives. May God bless you every time you rise up from your bed, walk out of your home, and go to work. And may you return to your loved ones each and every day in full health, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Please rise for the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yikadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Ve'amad yibrach chilutei v'yamlik malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala bagala uv'izman kariv imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach ve'olam u'olam ha'maya. Yitbarach, Yitbarach, ve'yishtabach, v'yibar v'yitroma v'yinaseh, v'yitadan, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemerikutcha brichu, le'ela mincha birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran v'yalma v'yimeru. Amen.
You may be seated. We turn ahead to page 785, Numbers chapter 4, verse 17. Dylan, last night you were in the starting lineup for the first quarter at Kabbalat Shabbat. Kept playing through the second quarter this morning. Third quarter, we gave you a little bit of a break. Fourth quarter, we're pulling you off the bench and putting you back in again, because it's time for you to be called to the Torah for your very first Aliyah, the Maftir Aliyah. Page 785, Numbers chapter 4, verse 17. You can uncover the Torah and find your spot. Nikki and Stephen, why don't you join him up there?
Yalon ben Mordechai v'nira maftir chazak.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aharon le'mor, al tachritu et shevet mishpehot hakati mito haleviim, vezot asu lahem behayu velo yamutu begishtam et kodesh hakodashim. Aharon uvana yavo besamu otam ish al avodato ve'el masao. Velo yavo lir'od kevala et hakodesh yametu. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, vayehei olam nata betoheinu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach, Dylan. Great job. Now call on Dylan's cousin, Benjamin Radzinek, to join us on the bima as we lift and dress the Torah. Please rise.
Yamdu hamagbiya v'hagolel. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל ביד משה.
May be seated. Each Shabbat, in addition to reading and chanting from the Torah, the rabbi usually delivers a Dvar Torah, teaching something based on the Torah portion. And on Bar Mitzvah weeks, I'm happy to share this honor with our Bar and Bat Mitzvah students. So Dylan is going to now share his Dvar Torah, his words of Torah about his Parsha, after which he will chant his Haftarah. So I now call on our Bar Mitzvah, Dylan Sachs, to teach us all his Torah.
Welcome, everyone. I am so grateful to be on this bima today with so many people I care about. During this tough time especially, it is amazing to have all four of my grandparents here with me, and especially my 97-year-old grandmother, Boba, who is watching at home. I am also thrilled that my other family members and friends are either in person or on Zoom to celebrate with me today. This Shabbat, we begin the fourth book of the Torah called Bamidbar. This literally translates to in the desert, because that is where this Torah portion takes place, when all the Israelites are in the desert traveling between Egypt and Israel. However, in English, the book is called Numbers because counting and numbers are one of the key topics in the Parsha we read today. In this story, God essentially asks Moses to take a census, similar to what was just done in America last year. God tells Moses to count all men above the age of 20 to know how many men they have in the army. Moses counts each man in each of the 12 tribes, and the total number is 603,550. However, the Levites, which are the 13th tribe, were not supposed to be counted in the census because they were spared from serving in the army and had their own special jobs. God said he would designate the tribe of Levi to serve in the temple. The Levites had to carry the desert temple that they set up every place the Israelites camped. Whenever they set up the temple, each tribe had their designated spot around the temple, and the Levites were the closest to it. Moses' brother Aaron and his two sons were the priests and had very specific jobs to do regarding the temple. They were in charge of guiding the temple and protecting all of its holy items. When reading my Parsha, at first, it surprised me that God singled out a particular group of people. One of the main rules I have known, and that is taught in Judaism, is to treat people equally. However, it turns out that the Levites had actually earned this designation. One of my passions is basketball, so let me put it in these terms. God essentially chose his starting lineup, gave them big contracts, and put everyone else on the bench. Just like LeBron James earned his starting role for 1,300 games over 18 seasons. But that's because he averages 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists a game. But I digress. Back to the Levites. Why did God grant them special privileges? Originally, the firstborn sons served as the priests and had very special jobs and privileges and responsibilities. But when they were in the desert, these firstborn sons built and worshipped the golden calf, whereas the Levites were the only tribe to not participate in that. Once the Levites showed their devotion to God, God chose them to be his holy servants, and they were given more privileges and responsibilities. The main responsibility of the Levites was to take care of the holy temple and all of its contents. The main privilege of the Levites was that they didn't have to worry about day-to-day things such as food, because God told the other tribes to help the Levites by providing such things for them. They also did not have to fight in wars and risk their life in that form. A responsibility is a task or assignment that you are expected to complete, whereas a privilege is something that you earn or receive for gaining trust in someone or completing your responsibilities. You gain privileges by completing your responsibilities. As you get older, there will become more responsibilities for you to do. Many people do not like doing them, but they have to be done. As I have matured and grown up, I have gotten new responsibilities. Some of these include being more self-sufficient by doing things for myself and taking care of the things on my plate. This past year, being at home so much and managing virtual school, I feel my level of personal responsibility has particularly grown as I have helped much more around the house while trying to be as self-sufficient as possible with school, while my parents had to do their own work. I have also helped my brother and dog whenever they need it. But responsibilities go beyond our own families. Just like the 12 tribes helped the Levites, we have the responsibility to look out for others who need help in one way or another. As part of my mitzvah project, I wanted to help people lacking these basic human needs, such as a place to live and food to eat. With my family, we made sandwiches and delivered them to a teen shelter. We got supplies and donated them to people who are living in Tent City, and I put together supply baskets for frontline workers. However, along with these responsibilities also comes privileges, and I have also gained some of these recently. Some of these are material things like clothes and sports equipment I wanted. Some are doing special fun activities, and some are really special, like getting our dog Arrow. But what is probably more important are the intangible privileges, such as freedom, more of a say in things, and having my parents trust me more. By looking at privileges and responsibilities, I realized that the Levites were not actually given special treatment, but rather they had their own distinct jobs and obligations connected to those jobs. I learned from the Levites that all of the privileges I have and will get in the next few years will be tied to the responsibilities that I am able to fulfill. I realize that I am very lucky and live a pretty privileged life. There are so many people who aren't so lucky, and as I continue to grow up, I am going to be sure to never forget my responsibility to help others. I would now like to acknowledge some people who have helped me get to this day. Thank you to my Hebrew school teachers and classmates throughout the years for teaching me to love and understand Judaism. Thank you, Rabbi Wolk, for teaching me about my Parsha, my life, and guiding me to this special day. Cantor, thank you for teaching me all of my blessings, Torah, and Haftorah. I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you to all my friends for making me laugh and enjoying some of the best moments. You guys will always be there for me and always make me have a good time. Thank you to my aunts and uncles for always lightening up the mood and teaching me many new things. Thank you to all my cousins for all the fun memories we have throughout the years. It is a blessing to have all 4 of my grandparents here today. Zayda, you are an amazing person to be around. You are so funny and caring. Safti, you are so kind and nice, sometimes giving me too many things. Grandpa, thank you for playing sports with me all the time. I'm glad we can do this together. Grandma, you are a very heartwarming person. I always love talking on the phone with you. Ian, you are the exact definition of a little brother. On one hand, you can be quite annoying and bothersome, and there's more, but I have a time limit. On the other hand, you're always there to play with me. You are so much fun, and you make each day more enjoyable. You are the best. Dad, thank you for always talking and playing sports with me all the time, whether you want to or not, and being my biggest fan and supporting me at all of my games. You are always pushing me to be a bigger and better person, even if we all think it is questionable at first. I aspire to one day be the great dad that you are. Mom, thank you for helping me in every way, shape, and form possible. Whether it's helping me with my homework or keeping me on top of things, I always appreciate it. Thank you for listening to me and comforting me when I need it. You have shaped me into the person I am today. I love you. Finally, thank you to everybody else in person and on Zoom who came today to celebrate this day with me. I really appreciate it. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom. Great job, Dylan. We turn in the Chumashim to the Haftarah for Parshat Bamidbar, page 787. Dylan chants from the prophet Hosea, beginning chapter 2, verse 1, page 787, starting with the blessings.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar bimbiim tovim v'ratza bedrivehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai haboher batorah ufmoshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'imvieh ha'emet v'tzedek v'hayah mispar b'nei Yisrael keho hayam asher lo yimad ve'lo yisaper v'hayah Bimkom asher ye'amer lahem lo ami atem ye'amer lahem b'nei El Hai v'nikbetu b'nei Yehuda v'nei Yisrael yaktav v'samu lahem rosh ehad ve'alu min haaretz ki gadol yom Yisrael. Imru rachechem ami vlahotechem ruhama rivu bimhem rivu kihi lo ishti vanohi lo isha vetaser znuneha mipaneha vena'afufeha mibein shadeha Pen avshitena aruma behid satiha keyom hivalda veshatiha hamidbar veshatiha ke'eretzia vehamitiha batsama ve'ebaneha lo arahem ki b'nei zenunim hema ki zanta imam Ovisha horatam ki amra El Hai ahare mehavai notne gadmi umemai tamri ufishti shamni beshikuyai Ahen hineni sach et darkech basirim vegadarti et gedera untivoteha lo timsa Berid fa et me'ahaveha flotasi gotam uvikshatam velotim sa ve'amra El Hai ve'ashuva elishi harishon ki tovli az me'ata Ehi lo yad'a ki anohi natati la hadagan vehati rosh vehayitzar veheset irbeiti la vezahav asula baal Lahen ashuv belakati dagani beito vetiroshi bemoado vehitzalti tzamri ufishti lehasot et ervata ve'ata agale et navluta le'nei me'ahaveha ve'ish lo yatilena miadi Vehishbati kol mesosa haga hodsha ve'shabata ve'homoada Vahashimoti gafna utenata asher amra את נהמה לי אשר נתנו לי מאהבי ושמתים ליער ולהלתן חיית השדה. ופקדתי עליה את ימי הבלים אשר תקטיר להם ותעד נזמה והייתה ותלך ההרם מאהביה ואותי שכחה נאום אדוני. להן הנה אנוכי מפתחה בהולדתי המדבר ודיברתי על ליבה. ונתתי לה את כרמיה משם, ואת עמק הקור לפתח תקווה, וענתה שמה כימי נוריה וקיום עלותה מארץ מצרים. והיה ביום ההוא נאום אדוני, תקראי אישי ולא תקראי לי עוד בעלי. והסירותי את שמות הבלים מפיה ולא יסקרו עוד בשמם. והראתי להם ברית ביום ההוא עם היית השדה ועם עוף השמיים ורמס האדמה וקשת והרב ומהימה אשבור מן הארץ והשכבתים לבטח. ורסתיק לי לעולם, ורסתיק לי בצדק ובמשפט ובחסד וברחמים. ורסתיק לי באמונה וידעת את אדוני. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שהודברה אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריה, ודבר אחד מדבריה, אהור לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דברה.
אמן.
רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלובת נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני, משמח ציון בבניה.
אמן.
שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך, במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו. על כיסו לא ישב שר ולא ינהלו עוד ההרים את כבודו. כי בשם קודשיה נשבעת לו שלא יקבה נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן דוד.
אמן.
על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, להבות ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לה ומברכים אותה, יתברך שמה בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Amen. Dylan, Yasher Koach, that was a long Haftarah. Great job. Nikki and Stephen, why don't you stand with your son, face towards me. What did you say yesterday? I'm supposed to embarrass him now? Is that what you told me I should do? Dylan, take a drink. Mazel Tov on celebrating your bar mitzvah this morning, and Yasher Koach on leading us in services, chanting your Torah and Haftarah, and sharing your own teachings with us. Mazel Tov as well to your parents, Nikki and Stephen, who are standing next to you, who have brought you to this day, and to your brother Ian, the perfect little brother, as you described him, Although I did notice you got included in a sentence together with the dog. Well, you can discuss that later. Mazel tov to your grandparents joining from Cincinnati and from Florida, and to all of your family and friends who are either here in the temple or joining us virtually over Zoom. We're so glad that you could be here in person, even though we've had to do all of our training together virtually. We've worked together over the last few months in studying your Torah portion and in writing that beautiful Dvar Torah that you delivered. And I have to tell you that you are what I believe the first student to finish his Dvar Torah with 3 weeks left to go. To use a basketball metaphor, like you did, usually these speeches take a buzzer beater to get done at the end. And this is very much in line with the way your parents describe you, as conscientious, as responsible, and as independently motivated. Does that sound roughly like you?
I guess, yeah.
You take those? Any other adjectives you'd put in there? I don't need to ask you to describe them. You are also, from what I gather, very competitive, even when it comes to games with your own family. I've heard something about obstacle courses. I'll have to try one out at some point. They are also so impressed that you can admit when you don't want to do something, but know that it will be good for you in the long run. I did learn something interesting about you that I don't really understand when we first met, and apparently you don't like anything sweet. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I really haven't had dessert in like 2 years, I guess.
I don't understand that, but
No one does.
nobody does. So one thing that I'm sure everybody here knows about you, and that also became obvious from your speech here at Dvar Torah, is that you love sports, especially basketball, and following statistics. You've run your own fantasy leagues because that stats angle really plays to your analytical strengths. And I remember that I used to love memorizing the back of baseball cards and basketball cards and knowing each year stat by stat. It's been a little while since I've worked those muscles, but it's a lot of fun. Maybe you're going to be the one to write the next Moneyball. That could be in your future. Which sports do you like to play?
Probably basketball the most, but I like other things, football, soccer.
Football, soccer, but we'll start with basketball. Okay, so we're going to focus on the basketball part right now. In your Dvar Torah, you mentioned LeBron James's very impressive statistics. So I have a question for you, and let me give you some background on myself before I ask this question. I haven't followed the NBA closely in some time, but when I was really at my, really a big fan, was the late 90s, early 2000s as a fan of the Knicks. I know you don't remember that time, but if I were to ask you, LeBron James or Michael Jordan, who would you pick? Who is the greatest of all time and why?
I think it's LeBron.
Okay, why do you think so?
You're putting me on the spot. He's like, he can carry a team to the finals. You
went right where I wanted to go with that. So, I told you my background because as a fan of the 90s era Knicks, I have no love for Michael Jordan, but I also remember that LeBron James spurned the Knicks in The Decision, so that wasn't really a highlight for me either. I have no stake in the answer to this question, is what I'm telling you, and it's a question that basketball fans will probably be debating for decades. But many people will say, like you did, that although Jordan scored more over more, LeBron was a more efficient player and a much better passer and a much stronger rebounder. I recently watched the documentary series, The Last Dance. Did you watch it? And learned that being teammates with Jordan was really not the most pleasant experience in the world, even while winning championships. So Dylan, I'm sharing this with you today. We're talking about basketball up here because I hope that Judaism will be an active part of your life going forward. Being driven, being motivated, being competitive, I think, helped you prepare as incredibly as you did today for your bar mitzvah. Sometimes there will be moments as you grow up, as you enter into adulthood, that are all about you, like today, where you are the star. Other moments will be about the team that you have in place around you. Starting with your family and your friends, you use your talents not only to one-up them, but also to support them. Just as they help you achieve, you help them to achieve and to grow. So we hope that as you enter into adulthood, you embody the best qualities that LeBron James brings to the teams that he plays on. And always remember that you mentioned him in your Dvar Torah. So Dylan, we wish you a big Mazal Tov, and Cantor Lissick and I are very proud of everything that you have accomplished for today. And Cantor Lissick is now going to bless you with the Berkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing, followed by Siman Tov U'Mazel Tov. And when we get to Siman Tov U'Mazel Tov, I invite everyone to shower Dylan with the candy. I hear the wrapper's crinkly and Ian's getting ready. And so just lofting it over the plexiglass, but he can also give you a target by walking out. Cantor?
Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ken yehi ratzon, ken yehi ratzon Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka Ken yehi ratzon, ken yehi ratzon May God bless you and protect you. May God show you favor and be gracious unto you. May God show you kindness and grant you peace and grant you peace. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Ken yehi ratzon, ken yehi ratzon, ken yehi ratzon, ken yehi ratzon. Siman tov u'mazel tov u'mazel tov u'siman tov, siman tov u'mazel tov u'mazel tov u'siman tov, siman tov u'mazel tov u'mazel tov u'siman tov. Yehi lanu, yehi lanu, yehi lanu.
You gonna say something?
Huh?
Were you gonna say something to him?
Just Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. Good
awesome.
job, Dylan. You can sit down for a moment or
Take
go back
some
to your
candy if you
seat
want.
and pick up some candy. Ian, you can help with that too, you know. Let's turn back in our Sidurim to page 177, Prayer for Our Country, the United States of America. I invite everyone to please rise, and I call on Dylan's cousins, Justin and Jonathan Sadler, to join us on the bima, page 177, the middle of the page.
Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessing upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land.
Adonai, God, whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land.
May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples who dwell in friendship and freedom speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. This difficult week, we pray together on behalf of the state of Israel, page 178. Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'goalo, Barech Medinat Yisrael, Shetehei Reshit Smichat Gulatenu, Hagen Aleha be'evrat chastecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shlomecha, ושלח אורך ועמיתך לראשיה, שריها ויועציها, ותקנם בעצה טובה מלפניך. חזק את ידי מגיני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם אלוהינו ישועה, ועטרת ניצחון תעטרם, ונתת shalom ba'aretz v'simchat olam liyoshveha. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy, and let us say, Amen. May be seated. We continue, page 181 with the Ashrei.
Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yalilu Chasela. Ilat Adonai Daber Piv Yivarech Basar Shem Kodsho Leolam Vaed Vanachnu Nevarech Ya Me'atav Yad Olam Hallelujah.
Page 183, we rise for the Torah service. Call Ian Sachs back to the Bima, and with our opening the Ark, we honor Mia and Eden Radzinek, who are joining us virtually. Page 183, if you could hand Dylan the Torah, and Ian, you can open the Ark. There's Eden. Aliyah. Your cousins say hello.
Hi. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav Shemo levado.
Odo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren li'amo, tehila lecho chasidav, livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah, mizmor leDavid, avul Adonai b'nei elim, avul Adonai kavod va'oz, avul Adonai kevod shemo yishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh, kol Adonai lamayim el hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim vayishaver Adonai et arzei halvanon, vayarkidim k'mo egel levanon v'siryon k'mo v'nereimim. Kol Adonai chotzev lavodesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholel hayalot, vayechesof yarot v'heichalo kulo merkavod, Adonai lamabul yashav vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai os le'amo yitin, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
Page 184.
I have given you a precious inheritance. Do not forsake my teaching. It is a tree of life for those who grasp it, and all who will hold on to it are blessed. Its ways are pleasant, and all its paths are peace. Turn us toward you, Adonai, and we will return to you. Make our days seem fresh as they once were. Et hayim hi lama hazikim ba betomcheha meushar teraheha darhei noam behonetivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai Eleha benashuva Hadesh Yameinu kekedem.
Thank you, Ian. We continue with the Musaf service, beginning with the Chatzi Kaddish, the bottom of page 184. Important stuff.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה
אמן.
ועמד דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחי גחון ומכון וחי בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יפרח יפרח וישתבח יפאר ויתרומם וינעשה ויצער ויצלש מקודשה בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה וימרו Amen. Page 185, Dylan leads us the beginning of the Musaf Amidah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rahel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Hasadim Tovim Ve'Koneh HaKol Ve'Zoer Asdei Avot U'Mevigol Elifnei B'neihem Lema Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Ufokeru Moshiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Abraham Ufokei Tzara Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Mehayei Metim Atah Rave Hoshia Mehakel Hayim Behesed Mehaye Metim Berahabim Rabim Sof Menoflim Verofel Holim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Mihamoha Baal Gevurot Umido Melah Melech Mamit Umekayeh Umatzmiya Yeshua V'ne'eman Ata Lehahayot Metim Baruch Ata Adonai Mehayeh HaMetim
נעריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב על יד נביאך וכרז זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו כבודו מלא עולם ישר טוב שואלים זה לזה איה מקום כבודו לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים ויחון עמם יחדים שמו ערב הבוקר בכל יום תמיד כמים באהבה שמה אומרים שמה ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון לדור ודור הללויה
לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור נגיד גולך לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור נגיד גולך Ulenetzah netzahim, ulenetzah netzahim, kedushat hanakdish. Ulenetzah netzahim, ulenetzah netzahim, kedushat hanakdish. Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
ledor vador,
ledor vador,
ledor vador, nagid goleha. Ledor vador,
ledor vador,
ledor vador,
ledor vador,
ledor vador, nagid goleha. Veshivaha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam leolam va'ed. Ki el melech gadol gadol vekadosh vekadosh ata. Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
Continue praying silently.
Im shalom tova uvracha, chin v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Im shalom tova uvracha, chin v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu, aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha.
Page 203, Kaddish Shalem.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
ויאמר דברי חירותי ומחמרותי בחיכון ובחי בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולם לעולמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתברך ותרומה מן הסייף ויזזר ויזל ויצל שמי ריקוד שבריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה ושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל זאתון ובאתון תוכל ישראל קטם אבון וישמעי ואמרו אמן. יהי שם הרב מן שמעי וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
Amen. You may be seated. Page 204. Dylan and Ian lead us in Ein Keloheinu.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, No Del Eloheinu, No Del Adonenu, No Del Emalkeinu, No Del Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shehitiru Avotenu, Lefaneha Ekatoret Hasamin.
Page 205. We rise for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליותר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, מושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, והארץ מתחת עינינו. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
May be seated. Turn to page 207. This Shabbat, we mark the yortzites of Joseph Pransky, Lillian Brenner, Estelle Marcia Perlowitz, Marian Epstein Paul, Louis Dibner, Isidore Silverstein, Joyce Zaks, Evelyn Sheffer, Louis Portnoy, Robert Rasnick, Susan Laxer, Martin Holstein, Madeline Thaler, Suzanne Goldfarb, Yenta Kazalchik, Samuel Lerner, Victor Levine, Yaakov Mogilevsky, Ida Weinstock, Lori Coman, Harry Sidney Cohen, Myra Thier Lazarus, Joseph Weissman, Harriet Levine, Isaac Abadi, Ralph Goldfarb, Moises Sandberg, Denise Gorin, Henry Kozlau, Sylvia Berger, Jerome Tiener, Michael Maurice Newmark, Nazli El-Kodzi, Zanval Bronstein, Jeanette Rosenberg, Lawrence Ross, Meta Klein, and Aaron Jacobs. Page 207, I invite those in mourning or marking a yortzeit to rise and join me in the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divera kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen, Yehei shemei rabbah mevorach leolam u'lamei omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, damiran b'alma v'imru amen, Yehei shlama rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen, oseh shalom b'mromav, Uyaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May be seated. Now call on our president, Teresa Brenner, for a presentation to Dylan.
Dylan, my spectator sport of choice is baseball, and I would just like to say you hit a grand slam today, so mazel tov on your bar mitzvah. It was outstanding. This gift bag is from your Temple Israel family, and it's my pleasure to let you know that you have received from the women of Temple Israel a Kiddush cup, from the Temple Israel Youth Group a Havdalah candle, from Hebrew High a logo insulated beverage cup, from Men's Club an Etz Chaim Traveling Edition with a personal book plate, from your Temple Israel Board of Trustees an I Am Jewish book, and from your Temple Israel clergy a beautiful English and Hebrew certificate. When you use these or see these in the future, may you remember the love of your family and the pride of your Temple Israel family. We look forward to having you with us on the Bima in these capacities for many years to come. Again, Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, Temple Israel family. A warm welcome and Mazel Tov to Dylan, his parents Nikki and Stephen Sachs, his brother Ian, his grandparents, his aunts, uncles, cousins, family, and friends. Dylan, you led us so thoughtfully thoughtfully and confidently this morning, and it's very clear you set high expectations for yourself, and that will serve you very well in the future. You have great successes ahead of you. We look forward to your participation again with us for many years to come. Thank you, Rabbi Walk, for inspiring us to be emissaries on behalf of Israel. It's always good to hear how we here in the United States can do things that can help our friends and family and our country in Israel. Thank you, Cantor Lissick, for leading us in services this morning, to Sean Seifert for your audiovisual support, and Alan Jonathan for serving as Zoom Gabbai. Yashar Koa to each of this morning's Aliyah honorees, Torah and Haftorah readers, Steve Powell, Laura Bernstein, Marcy Thaler, and Dylan Sachs, Barbara Bernhardt, Karen Turk, Colin and Melanie Zadikoff, Alan and Elaine Sachs, Cindy Zadikoff and Alan Rodzanik, Barry and Sherry Sadler, Stephen and Nikki Sachs, and Dylan Sachs. We are delighted by the CDC and the North Carolina governor's announcements yesterday and the expansion of the COVID-19 vaccines to those ages 12 and older. We are actively planning for changes in our procedures, which we will announce soon, but until then, please continue following our current procedures. We welcome congregants in person for Shavuot services starting this Monday and Tuesday, and again on Shabbat on May 21st and 22nd. And we are also holding in-person Sunday morning services at Temple Israel here at 9 a.m. outside. Shavuot begins Sunday, May 16th, tomorrow, with a family education program, Relive the Sinai Experience, at 5 p.m., and then a night of music and reflection with noted scholar and prolific author, Rabbi Menachem Creditor, and award-winning singer, songwriter, and educator, Neshama Carlbeck, at 6:15 p.m., followed by Minyan, Yom Tov Mariv, and Torah study with our very own Rabbi Walk, Cantor Lissick, and Rabbi Kornsgold at 7:30 p.m. These services are virtual. Shavuot Day 1 services on Monday begin at 9:30 a.m., including Torah Tots at 10 a.m., and evening services held virtually at 7:30 p.m. Shavuot Day 2 services begin at 9:30 and include our adult B'nai Mitzvah and Yitzker. After Shabbat, please see our website, Kol Israel, and your weekly email for complete information about our in-person services, the Shabbat Zoom link, the Stream Spot box, and upcoming events, including youth events with Alan Jonathan. We offer many opportunities for services, learning, community, and friendship. Please join us. Shabbat Shalom and Mazel Tov. Again, Dylan.
Thank you, Teresa. Now happy to call on Nikki and Stephen Sachs to share some words with Dylan.
Dylan, as we stand here today and I reflect on the past 13 years, think of your life in stages. Your first 2 years of life, you were sweet and kind, and I refer to this as the adorable stage. Now, during this time, you also did a fair amount of projectile vomiting, so I also refer to this as the splashdown stage. From age 2 to 4, you want to do everything yourself, and I refer to this as the independent stage. From age 4 to 7, you were a happy-go-lucky kid, and I refer to this as the smiling stage. From age 7 to 10, you became mature beyond your years, and we could talk about anything together. I refer to this as the buddy stage. From age 10 to 12, your passion for basketball emerged. I refer to this as the one day I will become a general manager of an NBA team stage. Starting when you were 12, your viewpoint took a sudden turn when the idea of listening to your parents is no longer necessary. I refer to this as Independent Stage Part 2, Rise of the Rebellion. Thankfully, that stage ended yesterday. As you became a man in the eyes of Judaism, you enter the responsibility stage. Your words, not mine. Dylan, Mom, and I love you, and we look forward to sharing all of your next stages together.
All right, let's see if I can do this. You're done with your part, now I have to do mine. All right, Dylan, words cannot express how proud I am. How proud I am of you. We definitely had some stressful days leading up to today, and even though everyone else knew you were progressing well and would be well prepared, you weren't convinced. You hold yourself to such a high standard, and through your hard work and dedication, you always deliver. Like any Jewish mom, or I guess really any mom, I often tell you how amazing you are, but you won't accept that compliment. You always follow it up with, why? I need specifics. Well, here we go. Let me give you a few specifics. You are smart, but it's not just about being smart. You're curious and hardworking. You ask thoughtful questions, and you are genuinely interested in learning. When you get an assignment at school and a few sentence answer would suffice, that's not enough for you, and you end up with a 2-page response. You're determined and have a resolve that I deeply admire. When you set your mind to something, there is no turning back. The rabbi referred to this. A couple of years ago, you decided you were going to eat healthy and weren't going to eat treats anymore. And since that day, you have not taken a single bite of a candy, cookie, or dessert. Is tonight the night?
Maybe.
You decide you want to be able to shoot a certain percentage of three-pointers, and you'll spend hours outside into the darkness until you've hit your goal. You're intensely competitive, mainly with your brother, but also just because you really want to do well. After any sports game, if you made a bad shot or make a mistake, the entire drive home is spent with you saying how you let your team down. But you actually rarely let your team down. You give it your all, and your intensity shows in your face, and often in the injuries you come home with, which I could frankly do without. I think a highlight to date for you was the finals game of a basketball tournament a couple of years ago. Your team was down by 1, you got the ball in the final seconds of the game, and the classic, he shoots, he scores, buzzer beater to win the tournament. I'm really just telling this story because you're still upset that no one got it on video, so I figure if I tell this story now in front of all your friends and family, it is now forever memorialized. You also have a sense of balance in life that is wonderful. You work hard, you play hard, you relax hard. You take things very seriously, but you have a really quick wit and a creative and silly side that not too many people get to see. You have such a warm heart. Years ago, when I used to run, I'd sometimes drag you along with me. We would stop and walk whenever you asked. Soon enough, you were no longer ever asking me to take breaks, and I struggled to keep up with you. There was a 5K race coming up that you were signed up to do, and I asked if I could do it with you. I was expecting a quick yes as the response, yet you hesitated, and I could see the conflict in your eyes. Not wanting to hurt my feelings, you cautiously responded by saying, "Yes, Mom, but is it okay if I don't stay with you the entire time?" As much as I was disappointed at the time, both because I wouldn't be running with you, but also because one of the few things I could still beat you at was taken away. But I was gratified. That moment represented what parents dream about, literally and figuratively, setting you up to run on your own, to be faster and go farther than we ever have, and I know you will. We've done our best to teach you and lead you on the path to become a principled adult and living a life instilled with Jewish values. Just as you said in your Dvar Torah, you understand the responsibility of looking out for one another, making sure you have a positive impact on this world, and just being a mensch. But as much as we've tried to teach you, you have taught us so much. Probably most important in your mind is schooling me in all aspects of sports. Yes, I now know that the all-time best starting lineup would include LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Tim Duncan. And if anyone disagrees, Dylan would be happy to debate the topic. I chose that. You did choose that. More importantly to me, you've taught me about working hard to get what you want, about putting others' feelings before your own, about what it means to be a great big brother, an amazing son, and a genuinely good human. For the short while that I still have about an inch on you, maybe a little more today because I've got high heels on, and you still have to look up to me ever so slightly, I want you to really listen and take these words to heart. Dylan, our promise to you today is to be there for you always, in joyful times, to wipe away your tears, to support you, to teach you, even if you don't want to listen to what we have to say, and guide you through life. Our wish for you today is for a long life filled with peace, health, happiness, and meaning, surrounded by family, friends, and community. Cherish life and find the purpose in each and every day to be good, to do good, and show the world what you have to offer. We love you forever and always.
Thank you, Nikki and Stephen, for your beautiful words. We conclude our Shabbat service this morning on page 211 with Adon Olam. After Adon Olam, we'll recite the Kiddush, and following Kiddush, I invite you to stay on Zoom for special video montage in honor of Dylan, page 211.
Adon olam asher malach, b'terem kol yitzir nivra, li'ed nasa b'chefto kol, azai melech shemo nikra, v'yacharei kichlot hakol, levado yimloch nora, v'hu haya v'hu hove, v'hu yeh b'tifara, Adon olam asher malach, b'terem kol yitzir nivra, li'ed nasa kol hazai melech shemo nikra ve'ado af kiruchi be'eti shan ve'ayira ve'imruchi keviati Adonai li ve'lo ira Adon olam.
Please rise for Kiddush. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם על כן ברך ענה יום השבת ויקדשהו סברים הרנן ורבנן ורבותיי ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. Shabbat Shalom, Mazel Tov. If you're here in the sanctuary, I invite you to come forward to the bima, gather around the TV. If you're on Zoom, stay put.